Hi, I'm Will McEllen, and welcome to Armager's Firearms and Training. Today I'll be talking about how to potentially increase your skill with red dot optics. Specifically, I'll be providing an overview for a technique that I call dot the dot. Now, you may find this training useful if you're just starting out using red dots, if you find that you consistently need to readjust your point of aim when using a red dot, or if you simply want to increase the speed at which you can acquire the red dot. It also provides a nice bonus to your training that I'll talk about at the end. So, why is this technique needed? During firearm training sessions, and especially when working with new red dot users, I've constantly observed people spending a lot of time just hunting for their dot when they are trying to get on target. They bring up the firearm and either try to use the iron sights to line up the dot, which will typically place it too high, or they would just be searching for the dot by corkscrewing the firearm, constantly readjusting themselves in their point of aim until the dot magically appears. For myself, when I first started using red dots, I had an issue where I would consistently end up with a dot being just outside the sight at about the 2 o'clock position. This required me to always perform a slight readjustment to get properly on target. It was a very minor adjustment, but when every millisecond counts, I really wanted to find a better way to get directly on the dot. Ultimately, I found that the best option to help with getting consistently on target was to use a laser in conjunction with the red dot to help train muscle memory, hence calling it the dot-to-dot technique, as it utilizes one dot to help find the other. For myself, this technique allowed me to extinct my prior readjustment issue. For new red dot users, I found that it helps to train their initial muscle memory, which then speeds up red dot acquisition when aiming the firearm. Okay, what do you need to perform this technique? Of course, you're going to need a firearm equipped with a red dot. For this demonstration, I'll be using a Springfield Hellcat with a hex sight. You will also need a laser sight. A couple of quick notes on selecting the laser. First, I found that it's much easier to train with this technique if you use different colors for your dot and laser. So, if your sight uses a red dot, match it with a green laser, or vice versa. Also, you don't necessarily need to use a high-end laser, especially if you won't actually be using it with your firearm on a normal basis. There are plenty of inexpensive airsoft-style lasers that can be found for around $20 and will work just fine. While I normally mount an Arma Laser TR26 on my Hellcat, I'll be demonstrating today's technique using one of these budget lasers to show you how easy it is. But before we start, here's your basic safety reminder. Alright, so first off, please remember, no ammunition in the training area. Triple check that your firearm and all magazines are unloaded. Aim in the safest possible direction and never point the firearm at another person. And also keep the firearm under your direct control throughout the training. This avoids the risk of someone introducing live ammo to the training area. Bonus, we're working with lasers, so please, no cats allowed. It can be fun, but it's more of a detriment when you're trying to get some real training done. Alright, let's move on to the technique itself. Step 1 is getting your red dot sighted in. So, head out to the range, get a good zero established at your preferred distance. It doesn't matter whether you go with 7, 10, 25, or even 50 yards. Just get set up with whatever zero works best for you. The goal here is to make sure your dot is where it is meant to be prior to moving on to the laser training stage. Now that you're zeroed, we can move on to step 2. In this section, you will need to set up your training area and adjust your laser. For the area, pretty much any open room will work as long as you have a plain wall for putting up your target and enough room to move around a little. You can use just about anything for the target itself. For this video, I'm just going to be using a sticky note with a scribbled on point to aim at. Simple. Next, pick a spot between 5 to 10 feet away from the target. I found that around 7 feet is a good distance to work with. If you have the option, it's usually better to be a little farther away. If you're too close, you may not be able to properly adjust the laser and your movements might be too tight. Now, while at your set distance and while keeping your red dot centered on the target, adjust your laser so that it lines up exactly with the dot. At this point, your dot and laser should overlap as much as possible. Now that everything is set up, we can move on to step 3 and start training the technique. Get in a low ready position with your firearm. Next, as you start to bring the sights up, you should be able to trace a straight line with the laser coming up the wall and onto the target. As your sight starts to come into your eye line, the laser should automatically end up in line with the bottom center of the sight. As you continue to transition your aim to the target, the laser should track up through the center of the sight. Just keep bringing it up and in line until it matches up with your red dot. Great, you found your red dot and you're on target. Return to the low ready position and repeat the technique a few times. Again, from the low ready, you are just drawing a line up the wall with a laser until it matches up with your red dot. Dot the dot, you're good to go. Simple. Also, once you've gotten comfortable with this technique and hopefully increased your speed and confidence, you can easily start incorporating dry firing into the process. Low ready, track laser to the red dot, fire, down, and repeat. Over time, this technique should help to build the muscle memory needed to get you directly to the dot without using the laser. Just turn off the laser when you start to feel confident in your presentation, and you'll be able to see how well you're progressing. You can also easily adapt this technique for various presentations. It works equally well whether you're coming from a low ready or from various concealed carry positions. If you do tend to present more outwards with the muzzle slightly elevated, you'll simply need to reverse the direction of the laser by bringing it downwards through the top center of the sight. You can also use the dot-to-dot technique with rifles or any other firearm that you equip with a red dot. This makes it useful when training with a wide variety of firearms. Alright, so about that bonus I mentioned at the start. There is an unexpected benefit that you might encounter while using this technique. Dot-to-dot also helps with learning to not actually focus on the red dot itself. Of course, with traditional iron sights, you need to keep your front sight in focus, with a rear sight and your target slightly out of focus. Red dots change this, with your point of focus switching to the target. I've seen a lot of people tend to focus on the red dot as if it was a forward sight. A lot of the time this is just due to the fact that they are trying to find the dot, which causes them to automatically focus closer in on the sight as opposed to focusing on the target. By practicing with this technique, you are automatically focusing on the target, as that is where you're looking for the laser to come up. This allows you to naturally focus on your target or threat and allows the red dot to do what it's supposed to, which is to be a superimposed sighting point that is magically floating in the air and identifying your point of aim. The NRA Shooting Illustrated website also has a great article covering the mental mechanics needed to take full advantage of a red dot sight. I recommend giving it a read if you're really serious about understanding how to get the best performance out of your red dot. Well, I hope that some of you will find the dot-to-dot training technique helpful. Please don't hesitate to comment, especially if you can think of any ways to improve on the process, or if you know of any other methods that can help improve red dot acquisition. Thanks again, and I hope you all stay safe out there. Take care.